Hi, welcome to another episode of our Creator Conversations podcast hosted by Media Mobilize. My name is Karina. I am the CEO of Media Mobilize, and we also have Tommy, who leads the publisher department. We partner with hundreds of creators and publications in the creator and marketing economy, and we're happy to highlight another key player today.
Today we got Dan Lewis on. Dan Lewis is a New York-based writer, trivia buff, former lawyer, and a longtime partner of ours here at Media Mobilize. He's also the creator and writer of Now I Know, a newsletter designed to teach you interesting things that you almost certainly didn't know before, but now you do. So I think to introduce Dan, I was looking up some trivia about, Dan has a website, like his bio is just trivia facts, and it's really entertaining and really fun. And instead of listing all of them out, I thought it'd be kind of fun if we let Dan do a two truths and a lie, because his stuff is really interesting. Like usually it's just like, this is where they went to school. This is like their favorite food. But Dan has some really fun stuff. So Dan, if you could take it away and just give us, I want Karina to guess. I told her not to look at the website. So if you can give us two factual things about you, and one of them is a lie, we're going to have Karina try to guess.
Great. So two truths and a lie, and I'll mix them up for you. So the first is that I can vibrate my eyes. The second is I had a petition on change.org, which received 100,000 signatures. And the third is that of all my grandparents' grandkids, I am the only one who's a boy.
Am I allowed to ask questions in this game, or I just have to guess? Are there rules?
I'm gonna be in charge of this. I would say reasonable questions that don't immediately give it away. Don't like interrogate him, you know.
Okay. What was the petition for?
It was about a major internet company making a change that was unpopular.
That sounds very plausible. So I'm gonna say, okay, I will go with vibrating eyes because if you can do it, then you have to show us right now. So,
So I'll try. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but I can vibrate my eyes. It's called a
okay, let's
voluntary
go.
nystagmus. So I'll do it now, but it doesn't usually pick up on camera. Um, the frame rates just aren't there. The it just my eyeballs just kind of shake back and forth a little bit. But yeah, that one's a truth. The petition is also true. But as it turns out, my grandparents of all of their grandkids were all boys. They didn't have any girls.
Oh,
Oh,
So,
really? Wow,
so the
interesting.
opposite is true.
I appreciate that your lie was also interesting in the end. You know, if you
Yeah,
said, if you were like, it's not true, there's a even mix between all of them, we'd be like, oh, okay. But that's still
Right, that would
interesting.
have been boring, right? Yeah, I like to make sure there's always a story behind the facts that I share, even if they're made up.
yeah.
That's the writer in you. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
that
Yeah.
is.
The petition one is very cool.
The petition was when Google took down Google Reader. I
Mm,
wrote up a petition pretty quickly, and it went
mhm,
viral, and got a lot of press calls, but didn't take any of them.
mhm.
But it was good. It was nice to have the a moment in the spotlight there.
Was Google
Awesome.
Reader back when you like Googled like an ebook or a book, like it would give you like the preview of it?
No, it's their RSS. It was their RSS platform, so you could like subscribe to blogs, etc. It actually, uh, as we get to talk about newsletters, etc., one of the reasons why I'm a really big fan of the newsletter space is because there really is no great way to subscribe to things online other than in your inbox, right? Twitter is fine ish, but even then, it's you're not subscribing to longer form stuff. Newsletters, when I started Now I Know in 2010, were the only real way to do that, and RSS, was the other option, but it was a niche product, right? And Google Reader was a niche product, so I wanted to find a way to push content to readers instead of expecting them to come back every single day.
Hmm. Gotcha. Well, Dan, honestly, we consider you one of the OGs of the newsletter space. You've been around for a while and you're still keeping it up. So props to you.
Thank you.
You just shared what kind of prompted you to start your own newsletter. But taking a step back, a lot of people might not know this, but you actually worked on Sesame Street. Can
I
you
did.
share a little bit of your experience?
Sure. So I also joined Sesame Street as their first head of social media in 2010. And over my 10 years there, I did a lot of digital marketing and communications, which sounds like a regular, boring job. In many days it was, but it also meant that I got to write for Elmo and Cookie Monster and Big Bird. And I've been in the studio a number of times and shot some content there as well. Sesame is a place like no other. It's look, it's it's a TV show with a business behind it, with a nonprofit behind it, and like any other job, it's a job, right? But at the same time, it's iconic and universally seen as good. And there aren't a lot of things that fit into that category. So it really was a fantastic opportunity, and I'm glad I had it. Uh, I also have somewhere on my shelf. Oh, I probably should have taken it out for this. I have a piece of one of Cookie Monster's cookies. Uh, somewhere, where do I have that? If I can find it toward the end, I'll grab it.
That must have been
That,
dangerous to get.
uh, he's a very messy eater,
Uh-huh.
and there's crumbs on the floor all the time.
Fair.
So it really is just how quickly can you grab something. Uh, and I don't think he eats the cookies twice. So they go in his mouth, and nom, 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 crumbs go everywhere. He's not going to pick up the crumbs and re-eat them. So
That's fair.
that was good. He shares. Like, that's a Sesame Street thing. He shares.
Do you have a favorite, and I understand if you can't even tell us, do you have a favorite like post or tweet that you did from one of the characters that like stuck with you? It's like that was a good one.
So I helped Cookie Monster write his Reddit AMA.
Oh,
So um, that's something that I'm proud of.
uh-huh.
There are, he is very funny and writes his own jokes for the most part, but you can always coach.
Of course, of course. And someone's got to type while he's busy eating cookies, you know?
Yeah, you got to keep him away from the keyboard, or he might eat that too.
It's true. Yeah, there's C's
Yeah,
on the keyboard. That makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Ready to
Well,
go next question?
yeah, that sounds like a very interesting time. When I first read about that Sesame Street, I'm just like, wow, that's such an iconic TV show, and all the kids watch it when they're growing up, and so it's really cool to know somebody that has actually worked there. Going back to newsletters, so you've been around for quite some time. Obviously, I'm sure the audience is very curious about the strategies that you've used, how to monetize it and whatnot. But thinking back to when you first started up until now, what do you think has been the most significant change?
Yeah, I switched from MailChimp to Beehive around this time last year. I had been on MailChimp from day one until then. And it was a lift. Media Mobilize helped a bunch with it, and thank you all for that. I'm a one man show here, and whenever I make a significant change to the newsletter, whether it's even if it's a design change, so changing my template, or editorially thinking about how I want to approach things differently, it often comes at, if not an out of pocket cost. There's the psychic or emotional cost of making that change, and the anxiety, especially where I'm kind of working without a net here. So the change from MailChimp to Beehive was massive for me. It was a massive undertaking. It was also, I'd say, across the board positive. When I started, I guess almost 15 years ago now, there really weren't any platforms that were purpose built for bloggers who are looking to uh, write in a newsletter format instead of like on WordPress, or even Blogger, or I guess LiveJournal was probably a thing still back then. So the newsletter space has matured a ton over the last 15 years, and there are platforms that are purpose built for what I do. Uh, Making that change was a necessary one. MailChimp's great, and if I had to start over again back when I did, I would have gone the same way. But it really is interesting to see how there isn't that one size fits all newsletter sending platform anymore, because there isn't because just because you're sending through the same medium doesn't mean your workflows are the same, or your goals are the same, or your messaging is the same. And that was a big lift, and a good one.
You mentioned that you've been a one-man show. How difficult was it to continue to be a one-man show? What are the struggles? What are the positives? How do you keep yourself motivated?
Yeah, usually it's smoothish sailing, but there are definitely times like anybody else where you suffer from burnout, or you're missing opportunities. I've reached out, I've had conversations with Tommy about this a few times. Uh, I'm the only person writing the newsletter, and I'd love to bring on other writers, but there's the budget impact, which is always hard. There's the making sure the voice is right, because my readers are there not just for the fun facts and the stories behind them, but also the way I tell it, or at least I hope so. I hope they're there for my writing. So switching from an editor to from writer to an editor rather. Uh, I don't know if that's necessarily the right move because it might be changing the product. Operationally, there's always, there are always things that pop up which I either can't fix or I need to partner with somebody to help me fix. Media Mobilize has been great along the way for many of those. Monetization, especially, I basically choose what's out there, right? So I've tried a lot of different things, and the design, same thing. That's not what I do. Uh, my attitude toward Now I Know has, for the last, let's say, 10, 12 years, has been as long as I write or at least publish something every weekday, um, everything else can kind of fall to the wayside. And if there are opportunities, great, I'll grab them. If they're easy, I'll take them on. If they're not, I pass. And I'm very transparent about that when I talk to different collaborators and partners, to the point where I've had people reach out to me and say, "Oh, do you want me to edit your stories before they go out?" And for a while, one of my readers did that, and it was great. But then after a while, it just became too cumbersome because it meant that I had to finish the story at least the night before, and I couldn't write it the next day. And I have this thing called life that gets in the way of everything, and uh, the it's okay. Like, I'll send things out with a couple typos sometimes. Oh well. So look, is there opportunity for me to refine and level up Now I Know? Absolutely. Is there a way for me to do that the way I currently operate it? Not really, but I'm okay with that. That's where I've been for a long time, and I'm okay with that.
Well, I think there's a reason why you have, very consistent, loyal readers because, for 15 years, trying to get something out in your own voice when there's so many news outlets out there, that's a level of commitment that I think, should be rewarded and admired. So that's awesome. You mentioned moving from MailChimp to Beehive. There are tons of new email platforms popping up out there. And I'm glad that you've enjoyed your experience at Beehive so far. What is a future that you wish was out there that's not already?
Um, I'm actually pretty happy with Beehive. I think they're building a really good product for people like me. I I also, I looked at Substack and ConvertKit, and I think what they're building is pretty good too. You know, in general, this is still probably, it's not day one anymore in the space, but we're probably still at early days, and there are probably innovations that are going to come down the pipe that people who are just writers, let's say, like me, aren't really focused on or thinking about. And I think you'll see more of that over the next, few months and years. The one thing I'm more concerned about actually about feature creep and bloat, right? So, uh, Mailchimp pivoted over time from an easy and inexpensive way to send newsletters to more of a marketing platform, and great business for them. Totally understand why they went that way. But for me, it was like, yeah, every time they roll a new feature, I'm like, okay, I just need to figure out how to ignore that and go through my process. And I could, that wasn't a problem. Uh, I want something that's kind of, narrowly focused to what I do already to amplify what I'm doing. And what's out there right now is pretty much what I'm looking for. So that's good for me.
Are you someone that when MailChimp kept introducing like the new builders, you were like, no, thank you. I'll keep
Yeah,
the
no, thank you.
classic one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I had my templates, and I'm like, okay, so now I have to click on the upper right instead of the bottom left to get to that template. And if I adjust the template, where does it get saved? And and it's fine. Again, like they were building for a different customer than I was, right? And that's fine.
That's fair. Cool. Yeah, for the next one, to kind of take a step back away from like the actual sending platform back to like Now I Know as a whole,
Mhm.
I have a good question and a bad question, but kind of the same one. As far as like the content you've created goes, do you have like a favorite trivia topic that you've covered? And then also, do you have like a least favorite one that was just like a giant hurdle that you're like, oh God, I gotta get this over with?
Um, so I'll talk about the first one. So I don't really have a favorite per se, but one thing that I do bring up pretty often is a lot of the random trivia around escalators for some reason. And I'm not, it's weird because I'm not like individually fascinated by escalators. They are what they are. But
They have their ups and downs.
yeah, they do. They do. And I should have seen that joke coming. So
It was a good alley oop, though. Thank you.
it was
Good
just,
joke.
it was right there. Um, Escalators are like they're just a really bad method of moving people around, right? Because they're expensive and they break often, and in most cases they can just simply be replaced by stairs, right? And as a result, someone who grew up, so I'm from the New York City area. I live in the New York City suburbs right now. Uh, I commute into the city a couple of days a week, and I was just at a Knicks game this week, for example. So I was on a lot of escalators, but I grew up with escalators. I take them for granted. But there are huge areas of the world where there are none. For example, I grew up in a town in Connecticut where, as far as I can remember, there are none. And I never really thought about it until I found out this fun fact that in the entire state of Wyoming, there are two sets of escalators, right? Two, right? Which means four escalators because if you have an up one, you have to have a down one, which makes sense, right? Right. And I think they're both in like banks, right? And I don't really know why you need one in a bank, but if you think about where you need escalators, you need them in malls, you need them in airports, and places where you have to get a lot of people up and down multiple flights of stairs when they're all there at the same time. And when you have a lot of open space like you have in Wyoming, you can build horizontally instead of vertically, and therefore you don't need them as much, right? And I don't know what the largest airport in Wyoming is, but wherever it is, there are no escalators, and that makes sense because they break a ton. They're hard to
Yeah.
shun, right? Um, and then I kind of went down this rabbit hole. Like, if you've ever been on an escalator that's broken and you try and walk on it like it is a staircase, you'll realize something's amiss. It just doesn't work right. And there's some weird psychological reason why that happens. Like, our brains are afraid they're going to start moving or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we basically treat it more cautiously. And then my favorite thing is, the little brushes on the side of the escalators where your feet are? So those don't do anything, right? Like I jokingly say, and I've heard other people say this, that they're there to clean your shoes,
I
but
heard
they're
that a
just,
lot.
That's
right?
what I would think.
But they don't really do anything in and of themselves. The issue is that older escalators in particular, but it's true for all of them, the stairs need to move, so they can't be welded to the side. So no matter what you do, there's always going to be a gap between the side and the stairs. And we want to make sure that people don't get their shoelaces or whatnot stuck in that crease. So the brushes are there so if you brush against them, you instinctively move away because you think you've done something you shouldn't, and it keeps people away from the edges of the escalators and keeps the escalators from breaking and from people getting hurt. But in and of themselves, the brushes do nothing, right? And that's why they're there. Uh, and I just find the whole thing really strange. Like, here's something that I take for granted because I grew up in an urban area and I haven't really given a bunch of thought to, or I had it before I started the newsletter. And then every time I look at it, I'm like, every time something pops up about an escalator, I'm like, oh, I never thought of that before. Yeah, of course we shouldn't have them everywhere. And of course they shouldn't work like stairs just because they break. And oh yeah, those brushes, what do they do? Right? All of that stuff. So that type of rabbit hole is where I go with Now I Know. And when I do, that brings me joy more than any like specific fun fact or anything like that.
That's fun. And then for the alternative, do you have a topic that was just not as fun, but still worthwhile talking through? That's important.
So, kind of. So a few years back, I used to, okay, but now not anymore. So a few years back, I wrote a story about something called pine berries. Pine berries
The white looking strawberries.
The white-looking strawberries, right? Okay, so you've heard of these before.
I have some in the fridge actually right now.
Okay, so
I have not.
so you are one of the first people I've ever spoken to who has ever had them before. Because until about 3 or 4 years ago, you couldn't really find them readily in the United States.
Hmm.
And when I wrote about this in like 2012, it was sold out of some like grocer in the UK, and that was it. And I was fascinated. Oh, sorry, they're white little strawberries that taste like pineapple apparently, but I think they just kind of taste like bland strawberries because I have tried them.
Yeah.
Um, and so I wrote about it in 2012 and never saw one anywhere, like never. And then somebody like so a couple people were skeptical they existed. I got some notes back from readers saying, "Are you sure these are real?" I'm like, "I don't make it up, and why would the newspaper I'm citing make it up?" And then it came up a couple more times over the years where people were like, "Oh, I was stumbling through your archives and I saw this thing," and I'm like, "I don't think these things are real." And I went back to the article I based the story on, and it was written on April 1st. I'm like, "Oh no, did I fall for an April Fool's joke?" And it bothered me for like this bothered me for like a decade. And then one day I'm just at this little corner store in town, and there's a box sitting there, and I was ecstatic. I'm like, they're real. I can buy them. I did. They were gross. I ate two. We threw out the rest. Um, but Karina, I hope you have a better experience with the fine berries in your fridge. Um, but yeah, so that was like my least favorite for a long time because I thought I was duped.
I need to know, did you take a picture, post it on your website for all the haters out there who doubted you, did you let them know?
I am pretty sure I did. I'm going to check quickly while we talk um, because I'm not one to. I did. I did. Okay. And I just looked up while we're talking. I wrote about it originally in 2010, and I told my readers that I wasn't duped in 2022. So 12 years of my life, I was skeptical about whether something I had written about was actually true.
Well,
Turns out
you
it
know
was.
what? You are very ahead of your time, Dan, because I first saw pine berries at Trader Joe's last year, actually a couple months ago. And I was like, they're selling unripe strawberries. Like, I don't think they're supposed to sell these like this. And then I tried it. It was actually pretty good. It didn't taste like pineapples to me. Still sweet, but it tastes kind of like a less sweet regular strawberry. Um, so yeah,
That was my experience too. Like
yeah.
I was expecting pineapple, so I
Hmm.
guess that's why I was disappointed. But it was like right, a less sweet regular strawberry, which is actually how you'd probably describe an unripe strawberry anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
now anytime I see Pineberry, I'm gonna think of you and this conversation. I'm happy that you were able to, prove that you were right. Awesome. Well, those are still both very interesting topics to me. So that's awesome. Has there been a time when you were, let's say, in a divisive situation when it comes to your newsletter or content creation? As I'm imagining you've had very loyal and avid readers throughout the years, maybe you'll get a response and it's not as positive. How would you deal with that?
So I've gotten a bunch of them. I try and like I try and stay away from political topics in general. If if you want to dive into something political, there's plenty of other options out there. I like for now I know to be a respite from the real world. I don't typically even tie into the day's news. I jokingly said at the end of last year, I ran a rerun of a story about something Christmas related, and I said that I felt like it was a good time to rerun it because I had originally published it years ago in August, and I don't know why I would share it in August, but that's when I learned about it. Right now, I know is really very often. Um, Now I just found out, right, and I share things quickly. But I try to stay away from controversial topics and political topics in general because that's not what I'm after. Um, I have opinions, but I don't share them on the newsletter. Uh, but my own biases might leak through, or who knows. But what happened to me once is the opposite, where my reader's bias came back to me, and I received back a really pointed note. So I wrote about something having to do with the atomic bomb droppings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And a reader wrote back to me taking exception with how I positioned the necessity of the bomb drops. Uh, I can't tell you if he was upset because I implied that they were necessary and he thought otherwise, or I implied that they weren't necessary and he thought otherwise. But what I can tell you is 5 minutes later, I got another email from another person making the same complaint but taking the exact opposite view, saying that one person thought that I implied X and it was really Y. The other one thought I had implied Y and it was really X. And I think I replied back to both of them saying that, oh yeah, coincidentally, I just got another note from somebody else where they thought I said the exact opposite. So that was fun, and I was really happy about that because it means that it wasn't me, letting my bias seep in. I've gotten I've got a bunch of other notes that are things that I won't share, but I've been accused of a lot of really interesting things that some of which are potentially fair, but most of them are not. And I just kind of shrug it off. I just forward it on to some family members, like saying, "Look at this note I got," and then I drop it because there's not enough time in the day to fight with somebody online, as you know that I only know in passing, and they only know me in passing, right? We don't know each other, right? So it's fine.
Yeah, it's difficult to not let your bias seep in sometimes. And, it's also difficult to control how people interpret your words, and they're going to interpret how they want to. And so that's, yeah, that's great insight. Another question I had, uh, how do you engage with your audience? Sometimes it's hard to gain subscribers, sometimes you'll lose subscribers, but, how do you make them stick?
Sure. So early on, if you emailed me, I replied back, and I replied back to everybody. And maybe I just had more time or more energy then, but looking back, that was good for the time, but not something that I could have ever reasonably sustained. So I don't do that anymore. I do read every email that I get back. I reply to some, but not as many. Uh, and early on, it was really good. I think I built a lot of very sticky relationships sorry, I built a lot of really strong relationships with readers, and it led to the stickiness of the newsletter. Um, Today, the engagement I have one-on-one with the readers is limited. I'll throw polls into some every once in a while, but even that's not a one-on-one relationship. Um, Also, like, just most people who have newsletters, especially if you're building newer ones, or if it's your core business and not a hobby like mine, you're probably obsessive about your subscriber count and making sure people your retention rates, etc. I'm not. I'm writing this for the people who want to read it, and if the numbers go down 1 month and swing up a little bit the next and swing down the next, that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. I've been actually pretty aggressive since I switched to Beehive about calling people who don't open, a lot more aggressive than I ever was before, because I don't want to waste your time. If you're not reading it, I'm not offended. It's fine. Like, I'm not writing it for you then, and that's okay. Not everything is for everybody, and I'm transparent about that with my readers as well. That I want to share what I share, and if you like it, that's great. And if you don't, oh well. On Fridays, I actually deviate from my fun fact and a story behind it format, and I do kind of like an open-ended blog post. Sometimes it's, I've had a long week and I got nothing. Here's what I wrote about this week. See you next week. Sometimes it's, very newsletter specific. Like I was when I did make the Beehive switch, I was very purposeful about explaining everything that was happening and how it would impact them, but more importantly, at least from my perspective, how it's going to impact me, because ideally it shouldn't have impacted them at all, except for maybe deliverability. Um, but sometimes I just kind of share like a random blog post. Like this week, or sorry, um, last Friday, I shared a game that my family and I have been playing around the holiday tables called. It's actually based on something I saw on Reddit. Explain a movie badly, where you where you explain a movie using a plot that's clearly not the intended plot of the movie, and everyone else has to guess what it is. So over the holidays, we came up with a bunch. I started taking notes. I had 18 of them, and I shared those riddles with my readers last week, and I gave them the answers this week. So I'll do like kind of one-off things like that. And I think that also helps build the personal relationship, right? They're not just reading the story and the fun fact, the fun fact and the story behind it. They're also, kind of getting a glimpse into what makes me tick and my persona as well.
Do you have one of those describe a movie badly handy?
I
Maybe
can
right now.
grab one pretty quickly, yeah.
Please do. Yeah, I want to do it.
Okay, I'm gonna pick. How hard do you want it?
Uh, I guess medium.
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 I would
Yeah.
win this game even without playing because I'm a terrible storyteller. I've been told. So,
This is just
Well,
how Karina describes movies in general.
yeah. I
well,
just don't understand the plot. So,
well, okay. So let me give you. Do you understand the rules? Or do you want an example one first?
I think if you're giving us one, I think I understand the rules. We're just
Okay.
gonna guess what movie it is.
Okay. I'm gonna choose one from the list. Okay. A recluse puts children in grave danger for philanthropic means. A
a rec,
recluse
a rec, oh, I thought you said reckless. A
That could be
a
a
recluse.
lot of
recluse puts
movies.
children in grave danger for philanthropic means.
Oh, is it Willy Wonka?
It is.
Hey,
Wow.
good job, Karina.
Well, I'm not even joking. It was like on the tip of my tongue, but I feel like
Uh,
if I say that, nobody's gonna believe me. Can you give
I'm
me
thinking
one
Hansel
more?
and Gretel, which wasn't helping.
I'll give you one more.
Okay.
A tween gives a piano concert in New York City.
Movies where someone plays
Um,
piano.
is it? It's not the School of Rock, is it?
No, they're playing piano. Who plays? What's a movie where someone plays piano and also is a tween?
Hmm.
But it would. Oh, is it Big?
It's big.
Well, I didn't even watch that movie, so I wouldn't know.
Oh.
That's fair. That's fair.
All
Yeah, that
right,
was the
Dan.
problem because New York City is a big part of the clue, right? And you don't think
Yeah,
about it at first,
FAO
right?
Schwartz. If you don't have that, then it's.
Right.
But also, if you give a toy store, it's too obvious. I understand.
Right.
Yeah, and also that's a very small part of the movie. So this is a fun game. I like that game.
It's a fun game.
You know what? After this podcast, you guys need to email me more so I can play because I'm not gonna let this go until I get one. But I don't want to use up all of our time right now. But that's a very fun game.
I love it.
Um, okay, cool. Out of your Now I Know readers, are there any notable ones or any that have surprised you?
So there was one early on who had a role in Orange is the New Black, and that was kind of a weird one. It was great, but I never met her. But Orange is the New Black shoots at Kaufman Astoria Studios in Queens, which is where Sesame Street shoots as well. So I was always like, I wonder if I'm going to bump into her randomly, but that never happened. I don't really think, as far as I know, I have anyone more famous than that who reads. Uh, if so, they haven't reached out to tell me. I did actually get a note from a movie producer once saying that I don't know if he was on the list or somebody he knew was on the list, but he was like, oh, let me know if you think any of these could be made into movies. And I'm like, I think most of them could. Well, not the elevator ones, right? But the escalator ones, right? But there's a lot of them that could. We had like a quick back and forth, but nothing ever came of that.
I think the
But
entire story about your Pineberry dilemma could be
Hmm.
made into a movie.
yeah, like maybe a Netflix original or something, but it's not going to
Yeah.
theaters.
One man's desperate struggle to prove a fruit is real.
Okay, I know we have a fun little section, rapid fire questions we want to ask you. So my last question before Tommy goes into that, What's your dream creative project? Either newsletter related or just anything you're excited about in the future, a potential collaboration.
Yeah, so I don't really have one. Like now I know it is my creative outlet, right? So, married, 3 kids, day job, et cetera, and this is, how this is how I spend my creative output time. I'm a huge baseball fan, so I'm watching a lot of Mets games during the season. I like to watch a lot of movies, but I don't think I have the bandwidth for another one right now, and I don't have any intention of wrapping up Now I Know anytime soon, if ever. So this is good for me. I think the question for me is more where can I kind of expand on Now I Know and maybe layer in something else. Uh, I over the last few years I've become a much more of a movie buff than I was before, but not really in theaters, but like because of the streaming services, anything that people say I might like to watch, I generally do watch, and maybe I'll do something around that at some point, but who knows? Uh, yeah, who
Do
knows?
you have anything you're working on for Now I Know Now that like is like
No,
the big project for it?
I don't even have anything written for Monday.
Oh, fair enough.
Right? I generally write like the night before. Like I don't even know what I'm going to write for Monday. I
No,
have nothing.
I get that. I mean, there's like times where if you think about it too much ahead of time, it almost becomes less fun than just like sitting down and like getting it out there.
Yeah, yeah. My process is the most broken process in the world. Really the night before, or if I'm commuting into the city, I'll write like the day before on my commute in. That's what I'm writing, and unless I need to prepare, like you don't I don't have cell service on the train always, so I can't be downloading web pages and whatever. I don't even pick the topic until I start writing. So a lot of times it's like, you know, I mean, there have been days where I'll be up at 7 o'clock in the morning and I'll publish by 9, right? Those are rare, but
Yeah, that's impressive though.
yeah. Well,
Well, I mean, it's worked for you for 15 years, so I guess your process is not as broken as you think.
it,
Um,
it could be better.
yeah.
A little stressful sometimes because you're like, huh, I'm supposed to have something out the door in an hour and a half, and I don't even know what I want to write about. That's never fun.
Awesome. Well, Tommy, I know you have some rapid fire questions. Tommy's just
Yes.
going to shoot these questions out, Dan. What the first thing that pops into your mind? Tommy?
So obviously it was just going to be straightforward questions. I will give you the option if you want to describe your answer poorly to us and then we can guess it.
Oh, that
If
could
you
be
can do it on
fun.
the spot, feel free. I think that'd be fun as well.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you can just answer.
I don't think I can for. Well, we'll see what the questions are,
We'll see.
but
That's the
I'll
thing.
try.
We'll
I'll
see.
try.
They're in the same realm as what we were doing before. So the
Okay.
first one is your favorite travel spot.
Okay, that one I definitely can't do it for.
That's fair.
So I had the opportunity to go to beaches in Turks and Caicos once on a business trip, which was awesome, and I've always wanted to go back and take the family. It's on the bucket list.
Cool. This one is literally what we did before. Favorite movie or movies, if you have a few.
Okay, so I will do one as I will explain that one as movie badly because I
Cool.
have it already done. Um, a gardener goes for a long walk barefoot.
Oh, barefoot is interesting.
Barefoot.
I'm thinking gardener. I'm thinking like Edward Scissorhands. Uh,
I will give you a hint. This
uh-huh.
is you will not be surprised that this is one of my favorite movies. Like you'll be like, oh yeah, that's kind of I kind of like that's like a lot of people's favorite movie, right?
Yeah.
It's not Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, no, no, no. I'm just trying to think of like a gardener. Like that would be also describing it poorly. Oh, I don't know.
I'm
Karina, do
not
you
very
know?
good at this game.
Well, I'll come back to it.
Okay,
But
okay.
so
We'll
I
think about
so
it.
but I'll give a longer answer before I answer that. So one of my stranger pandemic hobbies was not just to watch movies, but then to catalog and rate all of them that I've watched since as long back as I can remember. So I have an account on Letterboxd where I've rated like 700 or so movies, 1 to 5 stars. I ended up writing about this on one of my Friday emails, sharing it with my list. So it's really easy for me to tell you what my favorite movies are because they're the ones with 5 stars. And there's not a lot of them. There's maybe 20 to 25. One of them, or I guess three of them, are the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The Gardener is Samwise Gamgee, and he is clearly barefoot.
I should have guessed that. I wouldn't have thought Gardner as Sam. Funny enough, I am someone who has read all the books but not watched the movies.
I've read all the books. It took me a while to get through the first one. I read them all after the movies. The movies are phenomenal. Extended
Yeah,
versions, especially extended editions.
I've only watched I've watched the theatrical and extended of Fellowship, and that's it, which is crazy.
They're wonderful.
I need to get to it. But yeah, no, last year around this time, I started The Hobbit for the first time ever, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna read all of these. So from like September to December, that's all I did was read those books, and I wrapped it up like early January of last year. That was awesome. It was the best.
They're great books, but I think they're better movies.
To lead into the next question, what is your favorite book?
It is not that one. I'm trying to come up with a way to describe it.
You can do it poorly.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Let's do an easy one so I can try to get it and redeem
Yeah,
myself.
I'm not going to be able to describe it on the spot. It's going to take a while. The book is The Martian.
Okay.
I've read it like 5 times for some reason. I just really love it. It's just a great book. Easy read. I was going to come up with something about potatoes. Oh, I could have made a Sam joke. Oh, man. There's a Samwise Gamgee potatoes joke just there, and I missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
It's all connected.
Okay.
Cool. And do you want to promote? I know you have quite a few books out under the
Yeah.
Now I Know umbrella. If you want to talk about those real quick.
Glad to, thanks. Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough to turn Now I Know into 3 different books. First one is called Now I Know. The second one is called Now I Know More, and the third one, surprisingly, is called The Soviets Invaded Wisconsin? Question mark. Because my publisher Simon Schuster and I decided let's go with something a little less generic and more about the fun fact. So all 3 of them are out. They've been out for a while. I don't think a 4th one is forthcoming because it's a lot of work, and I don't know if I have the time anymore. The books are 50% stories that I've shared on the newsletter before, 50% all new stuff, and they're not just a random collection. As you read the story, each one has a connection to the next one. It might not be the most obvious connection, but it's definitely clearly there. Like, so if I have a fun fact that is about, one of the stories is about how an American base during the Cold War went to like DEF CON, whatever, because they thought there were Soviet intruders, but it turns out it was just a bear. Right, and the story after that has something to do with bears as well, right? So it kind of flows through that, and the story before it has something to do with the Cold War, right? So you go from like Cold War plus bears, and then just bears or something like that, right? So they're available on Amazon, everywhere else books are sold, as they say. So if anyone watching wants to check it out, please do.
We'll definitely link it. I believe we have the ability to do that, so we'll link them.
Cool.
Cool. Next one. These have not been rapid fire, but they've been fun. Next one is either favorite song or musician.
I'm really not hugely into music. My playlist is kind of eclectic. I just kind of grab songs that I like. Random times I've had like the Beatles phase, the Beastie Boys phase, etc. Let's see, what was I listening to yesterday? I don't even remember. I kind of just go with the flow. In the 90s, I had like the Pearl Jam and C&C Music Factory CDs, and of course, the only thing they have in common is the 90s. So I'm kind of all over the map.
Cool. And then the final one is like a favorite sweet treat or dessert.
Chocolate chip cookies, they're the way to go. Even ones that have been previously attacked by Cookie Monster. Actually, don't eat Cookie Monster's cookies. There's no sugar in them because,
He's got to watch his weight.
Yeah. Well, also because it messes up his fur, all the oil. So, right. So.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, Dan, you're in New York. What's your favorite New York cookie spot?
Levain is great.
We were just there. We went there
We were
yesterday.
just there yesterday.
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
I haven't been in a while, but they're the way to go.
They have a new menu, actually. Tommy, did you try that toffee? Was it toffee or coffee?
I didn't. I ate the classic, the walnut chocolate chip right before this
So
call,
good.
so I'm still feeling it right now, but it's good. I'll have the coffee one like tomorrow or later tonight. I'm very excited.
So good.
Oh, yeah.
So good. We'll never get sick of them. Okay, well, thank you, Dan. That wraps up our rapid fire questions. Lastly, I would like to share with you, Dan, and also the audience, that our creator conference that Media Mobilize is hosting is on May 15th, Thursday, in downtown San Francisco. And the conference is really intended for serious folks in the industry, serious creators focused on full-time creating content. And so the website, will have it in the description. It is creatorcareercon.com. We do have like a great lineup of creators, publication sponsors attending, and we would love it, Dan, if you can join us. Um, any thoughts on the creator conference or any questions, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be part of it. It's one of those check the calendar things, but hopefully I'll be able to get out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for taking the time to join us today. We've worked together for years, and I feel like today I really, really got to, know a more personable side of you. I think it's very admirable that you've been creating content for the last 15 years. I'm happy to hear you say on the podcast today that you don't see an end to Now I Know, and we hope that's the case. Like I mentioned, you are an OG in the space. Audience can definitely learn a lot from your insights, and we're just excited to see your growth in 2025.
Yeah, thanks so much, and I really appreciate the opportunities to talk to you all today and get to know you all better too. It's been a pleasure working with Media Mobilize for it's been a lot of years, and I hope to have a lot more.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Tommy.